Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Call It Anything podcast. I am Jack, joined by,
Mr. Solis.
and we are back here today with a yearly tradition as it has become since 2020. But before getting into that, sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Jack. We got a week until Christmas, and I'm about halfway done with my Christmas shopping, and I'm growing more and more gray hair as I let time go on before I finish that. But my goal is tomorrow to get it done. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Still adjusting over here, but we're doing all right. Christmas is next week. Can't really believe it. Um, I had done some shopping, but because of all the stuff going on, I don't know when it will arrive.
You did a lot of online shopping?
Yeah, I had ordered a couple of things online, but don't know when they're gonna arrive because it showed my order got confirmed, but they haven't said anything about shipping it out. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, all right, might have to do some in person shopping to make up for it.
My last stretch is definitely going to be in person. I got a lot of packages today from my burst on Saturday. We finished school for the semester on Friday, so Saturday was a very productive day.
Yeah, can't imagine, but yeah, it's crazy to think that Christmas is so soon already.
Goodness.
And though we are a week early, of course, as I mentioned, yearly tradition, this is our Christmas gift to the listening audience because you know what we're here for. Since 2020, we've been doing this. It is the top 10 matches of the year from Mr. Solis and I. A yearly tradition. And as I told Mr. Solis, I had a very difficult time coming up with my list.
Because, sir, you have discerning taste and high standards and, a complex palate. I'm not going to lie. I've had 10 since about June, and it's been an exercise since then to really kind of, replace things, move things. And I haven't been in lack of matches, but I certainly think I considered a lot more.
Yeah,
There's so much that you're going to just talk about. There's so much I intended to watch that I didn't even get to. That down the line I might. It's been a good year. We've been eating good, Jack.
yeah, and I definitely kind of agree with what you're saying because it's like it's not that I thought like a lot of the wrestling was bad this year. It just like didn't personally wow me at times, you know. And I brought it up throughout our various recorded matches I was excited for. Don't really, hit too well with me when they come, such as Takeshita and Ricochet. And it's a variety of things. It's the outcome of a match that may, affect it. It may be the time that it was given. Maybe it didn't go as long as I wanted it. Maybe just the wrestlers were on an off day, didn't weren't on their best. There's so much that goes into it.
You're into a match, Jack. You're feeling good. Then bam, hit with a commercial break, and you're like, day is ruined.
Yeah, biggest one is the commercial breaks. But yeah, there's so much. And funny enough, I'm writing like a year-end review for the other channel like I do on wrestling. And when I got to
Yeah.
my top tens, I don't want to spoil, but I make the joke that like usually I have honorable mentions to give, but I quite literally only have about 10, 11 matches that I really, really enjoyed, and that's the top 10. So there isn't really
I
like honorable mentions for me.
I have a couple of honorable mentions.
Well, let's get right into it, sir. Let me hear them.
Here we go. I thought Balor versus Priest at Bad Blood was like, a well executed match. I maybe the finish, like Priest beating him so handedly at their first outing, was a mistake. There's probably more story to tell with Finn beating him first with shenanigans, but I enjoyed it. Cody versus Kevin Owens at Bash at Berlin, I liked even more after the fact with the recent events.
Mm.
Like I liked it then, but I like the Berlin match, even more with Saturday night's main event and the aftermath sort of happening. I'm like, oh, this aged well. There was a match, Jack, called Aja Kong and Maxi Impaler versus two tiny people I never heard of at TJPW. That was great. It was, it got moved. Too many great things happened, but Aja Kong and Maxi Impaler tag teaming against two people that they each individually weighed more than combined was a
Yeah.
great wrestling show.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, matches that like I enjoyed. The first one I brought up to Mr. Solis that just barely misses out for like it's kind of difficult to explain in such a short amount of time, but Swerve and Hangman at All Out, really enjoyed the story, really enjoyed the match itself, that cage match. Very violent, but it really sold the sort of animosity between the two of them, and the one thing I want to shout out here that I also that I'll shout out later with the other video is the one thing I loved the most comes as a result of the match. After all the violence that's been inflicted, the post match angle sees like Hangman standing on the stage. He looks almost like remorseful for his actions that like he did, and he kind of steps forward to like help, like almost like is he gonna go help Swerve? But what makes it that moment so much more better and impactful is that the audience in attendance thinks he's stepping forward because since they're farther away, they don't get to see the facial expressions that we at home get to see. So they're farther away. They think he's stepping forward to inflict more damage, and there's someone in the crowd that literally shrieks in horror as he steps forward. So it's like I love that sort of like story that like Hangman is this hero who is upset with kind of like Drew McIntyre is upset with the crowd for being so accepting of this man, and it almost like physically, like you can see the physical hurt on his face when the crowd reacts to him that way, because it's almost like it's him recognizing he's truly lost them now. Like he went too far and has truly lost the people that once cheered for him.
Ooh.
So yeah, really, really enjoy that match. And then there's a couple from all over the place. Takeshita's whole G1 was great. Punk, Drew, and Hell in a Cell was great. A lot of the all-in matches like Tony and Mariah I thought were pretty good, but not enough to crack the 10. Which when people hear my 10, I have to admit a lot of people will be very confused by some of my choices, but I actually really like a lot of my choices. And as I told Mr. Solis, only one repeat promotion on my top 10. I thought I was gonna be able to like sneak a buzzer beater in there to have like completely, no repeats in the top 10, but I end up with one.
Right on. I did a check too, and I've got a couple of repeats, but I think things are relatively balanced with one exception I'll get into at the end.
Yeah, and also I think that's something that like if you haven't been listening to like this channel for 4 years now, to hear our top 10s, we typically don't like to include repeats of stipulations, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes talents as well. We usually try to limit things, try and be very unique with them,
Yeah, equitable. Hey, Jack, how different would our lists be if it was top 10 moments of the year?
Oh.
Like that moment between Hangman and the audience, right? Like maybe you put the match on the list, but if we're talking moments, like, wow, there's a couple of matches that I wrote off that I think I could pull a moment out of.
Yeah, and I think that's also another big thing that, the audience hears us talk about a lot when we're asking for, title changes or swerves in stories when, like, things are getting predictable. It's like, you got to get those moments, It's like we're always seeing those clips of the moments from the past, and it's like, other than, like, big title wins, that come, but, like, again, how many of those title wins come after, months, like, not really months, but almost like a full year of build to it, like, it's
Speak
not
for
a
yourself.
spontaneous moment. There we go.
Speak for yourself, Vince Russo. I'm not looking for swerves. I just want, variability. I want math.
Yeah, that's definitely how we were feeling watching Saturday night's main event. Was just something different.
Saturday nights, they got that Peacock only show main event. That's the main event held on Saturday night.
Oh man. But without anything left to say, sir, who shall get it started?
Oh my. Just because, let's see, hold on. I want you to end it. So if you're going to end the list with your number 1, I have to go first with my number 10.
Yeah.
Let's go. Number 10, Jack. And you folks have been listening to us for the last few years. They know that I play even harder with my number 10 than the other slots on the list. My number 10 does not disappoint with that tradition in mind. My number 10 comes from November 23rd, AEW Full Gear. Pause to let you think which match it could be. It's QT Marshall versus the Costco guy, AJ, in the pre-show.
The moment you said Full Gear, I knew what it was.
With the Rizzler at the bell. Jack, I put this thing on my list before they even touched hands.
Yeah, I got to watch that with a couple friends because they obviously know the meme, so like they wanted to see it, and they were just busting up the entire time. Especially just the visual of Paul White and the Rizzler next to one another was so hilarious.
I love that they sent Big Show Paul White out there, right? Because QT Marshall starts to like threaten him, and Big Show goes, "What you gonna do?" You're like, "Don't do nothing," and you're like, "He's really out there protecting that 9-year-old boy." Oh, Jack, it's it's good. It's so good. Moments. I have to go straight to Big Justice. He's the son, right? Yeah. The Rizzler is just Fred. Big Justice is the son. Jackie hits a spear that I defy Braun Breaker to beat. This match, Jack, even though it's number 10, gets 5 big booms from me.
Oh, man. Yeah, like I said, the moment you said Full Gear, I immediately knew what it was. Oh, man. Shout out to AJ for doing that with, I think he like broke his foot or something towards like the end of the match. Shout out to him.
I think like even the beginning. I think like most of the match he's like hobbling on one foot, but the man's a beast. I think wins with a power bomb.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. As always, an entertaining number 10 from Mr. Solis. My number 10 also comes from AEW. AEW is the lone repeat promotion on my list. My number 10 comes from AEW Dynamite, the March 6th edition. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're always complaining about commercials. But like I told Mr. Solis, AEW has an option for their international fans that they get to watch commercial free. And that's how I'm able to watch some of the matches in full from television. But my number 10 is between Riho and Chris Statlander. So, again, comes from AEW television. 2 favorites of mine when it comes to AEW's women's division. Like I said to Mr. Solis, I think before recording, I can't remember if I said it here, but is there potentially like better matches? Yes, but I think the common theme with my entire top 10, which, you know, it should be a theme always for people's top 10s, but it's really about personal enjoyment, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, not only was this a fun watch when it happened, to the point where I was like, man, this one and Darby versus Takeshita, like the start of the year, like I think it was like the very first episode of Dynamite, they were like 2 matches where I was like, man, is the TV match going to end up on my top 10? This one does, simply because it was a fun watch, and then when I rewatched it for the purpose of this list, I had fun again. And I'm just like, you know, it's a fun matchup. It's a face versus face matchup, which is interesting, especially because they're doing the whole David versus Goliath as well, you know. Both women work with some great speed. I really like it. There's some fun spots, like there's a spot where Riho counters Statlander's powerbomb into a 619, and it's super creative. I loved it. But yeah, it's short match on TV, you know, doesn't get a whole lot of time, but it was a fun match. I really enjoyed watching it. And the little note I put for this one was, matches like this always kind of make me sad because I just wish Riho was more like full-time with AEW. But yeah, that's my number 10 this year.
Right on. Starting strong.
All right, sir. What is your number 9?
Number 9, I actually got to watch in person at the Knucklehead Bar in Hollywood. Jack, do you get any kind of notifications on Instagram by an outfit called Circle 6?
Circle 6. I don't
think... Circle 6 was started by a group of guys that I think broke off from GCW. They started doing their own thing. And so Circle 6 had an event called Thriller in October, a la Michael Jackson song. Mm-hmm. And it also featured Santana Jackson. Do you know who he is?
That name sounds familiar. I
He's
think
a wrestler nowadays that wrestles because and his gimmick is he looks exactly like Michael Jackson and he does the moonwalk and wears a red leather jacket, does a hee hee and all that jazz.
interesting.
He was on the card. It was a great show, but the match that I'm putting at my number 9 of that event was for the Circle 6 Heavyweight Championship. The champion, Matthew Justice, who's like, what if Jason Momoa was smaller,
Hmm.
versus a guy I think you do know named Cruel.
Yeah, that one does sound familiar.
Kruel. He's a big spooky guy with a mask, and he's great. And I got to see him live, and he's just like 2000s Kane. Sold nothing, said nothing, moved slow, haunting. It was great. Oh, by the way, Jack, this championship match was a casket match, and they were throwing chairs at each other. They were spilling into the crowd. They went through tables. At one point, Matthew Justice, I think, hits a superplex into 2 stacked tables. That's not the finish, Jack. It's a casket match. You got to get the guy in the casket. They did that back and forth. The match ends with Matthew Justice. He just gets him in the box, Jack. He gets him in the box and he starts piling everything he can onto the box. Broken tables, chairs. The match is over. The championship defended. I think we're lingering on this for too long. It's weird, Jack. They got a drone. And I realized, Jack, at that moment he goes under the ring and he pulls out that red container, you go, oh my, and he's got gasoline jack and he sets that pile of rubble on fire and it gets into the casket because the guy pops out on fire.
Oh man.
Cruel versus Matthew Justice, number 9. Whoosh.
Very interesting matchup there.
That was number 10, Jack, and I was like, do I move it off the list? No, it gets promoted.
Oh man. Interesting. All right. My number 9 takes us to the promotion you mentioned in your honorable mentions, Tokyo Joshi Pro, over to the land of Japan. Sir, before I go into this match, I want to give you some context. And the first thing I want to ask you is tell me what promotion this sounds familiar to you.
Copy.
A promotion whose main event scene has been sort of the same couple of names rotating the title, in desperate need of some new blood to freshen up the scene.
Oh my. Are you talking about New Japan?
Yeah, it sounds like New Japan, right? Well, Tokyo Joshi Pro, at least in my opinion, has also had that same sort of issue because since their inception, really, their main event scene has really rotated between like 3-4 names. And so it's always made it so that like anytime a new name gets a shot, you're really just kind of like, you don't really believe it. Like there was a portion where it was literally just the same, I want to say like the same 3 people champion back to back to back. Like it was like this person won, they held it for I forget how long, just to drop it back to one of the other big names who then held it to drop it back to the name who had the title first and dropped it to that other person. And it was like it was like that for like years, to the point where, like I said, it was almost like the entire fan base was like, I'll believe it when I see it, when it came to pushing sort of some of the names. And to me, that's what kind of really is a big influence on this match. So the match is between the talents Miyu Watanabe and Miyu Yamashita, who's appeared at GCW a couple times, I believe. I know she's appeared on AEW. And it's for their main title. And I forget, I think it was like last year, their like tournament to like crown the number 1 contender. I think Miyu Watanabe had lost it, and everyone was just like, when is it going to be her time? When is it going to be her time? Like it's a younger talent. Again, like I said, it freshens up the scene, but everyone's just like, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? It might have been 2022 where that happened. I forget. But anyway, she somehow gets the challenge for the main belt here. And that's basically the whole foundation of this match. And my foundation of entertainment is I'm just watching just like, are they going to pull that trigger? Or are we going to see the same names win again? But they end up doing it. I will have to say, through my own stupid actions, I got the end of this match spoiled for me because
Hey,
it was late at night. You know, Japan shows, they happen at night. I woke up in the morning, completely forgot the show happened at night, and I was holding off on watching it. I opened Instagram, and boom, right there she is with the title. But that still didn't stop me from watching the match, and just the amount of joy I felt, where I was like, they finally pulled the trigger on one of their best talents.
right on. I try, Jack, to make that feeling happen when I see the post. Like, instead of getting mad, I try recently to feel the euphoria that I would get seeing the match live because it's, like you are kind of receiving that information. Like, that can also be joyous. It's hard. It's not,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I've done it 100% of the time since I had that idea. But, nice.
all right then, sir. We take it to our number 8. What is your number 8?
Number 8, a couple of other females wrestlers who stood out this year with a lot of exploits. There's a lot of matches from each of them that could have made this list. I picked this one.
It's
This is
Bailey
from
versus Nia Jax, isn't it?
you cut it out. You. It's from July and it's from NXT. It's a street fight between Mishin and Jada Parker, who had a number of matches that could have been on this list. She had a breakout year. And Mishin and Jada Parker, in the leading up to this match, they were going after each other, right? This is when Mishin was with like the OC, so it's OC versus OTM. And like, what got me into this, Jack, even before the match starts, is there's this backstage interview, and they go, "Back to you, Booker." And Jada Parker pushes the interviewer out of the way. She's looking dead at the camera. She goes, "No, you're not going back to nobody." And she starts running down Mishin about this match. And I'm like, yes, yes. So, match happens, Jack. Weapons, this, that. But Jada Parker is just running roughshod over Mishin. Oh, it was incredible. Like, we're going through barriers like your Goldberg. They have this wall next to the commentary table that they're going through all the time. I mean, this is the first time I've seen it, but I've seen it a few times since. Hard hitting, entertaining, incredible. Jada Parker wins because she's like the one on the on the rise. But Mishin, goodness gracious! I mean, she was just in this United States tournament, made it to the finals.
Yeah.
Like, someone not to sleep on.
Yeah.
This match, this TV match. I don't care what commercial break it happened. I was hanging on the edge of my seat, waiting for the action to continue. Is my number 8.
Nice. Funny enough, my number 8 also comes from NXT.
Yeah,
My number 8 comes from NXT Heatwave.
yeah.
And I've said it to Mr. Solis before, I gotta get on the wave, of NXT. Seems like a big joy, very easy to get into. That might be, what I do in the coming year. But I don't watch much NXT, especially this year. But when I was, it was to watch that Nigerian beast, Oba Femi. My match, like I said, comes from NXT Heatwave, and it is him defending that North American title against Wes Lee. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there has ever been a prospect in wrestling that has my attention the way Oba Femi does. Just, my goodness, I think this was his best showing so far in his career, and definitely my favorite title defense from that reign this year. Again, it's another David versus Goliath matchup. I think those will always end up being a lot of my favorites, just because it always is so compelling, But this one, it has a lot to benefit from. You have Wesley Speed, who I have to mention, the fact that he's moving the way he is and doing so well after that back injury that almost made him retire, which, funny enough, I was doing that, how I told you that section about people coming back from injuries in the wrestling world. I couldn't believe how many I was seeing, especially this year, that were coming back from like back-related injuries that almost made them retire. I was like, man, why was this so common? It was like Wesley, Jamie Hayter, and I think Kyle O'Reilly. Like, all three of them were coming back from like major injuries, like with that area, and like all three were like, yeah, I almost retired because of that injury.
Not to sound too boomer, Jack, but I can maybe come up with one reason, brother, why these young kids and their reckless styles are getting themselves into these career-ending situations, brother.
But yeah, I have to give him props for being able to move, because, I mean, we've seen many wrestlers come back from injuries and just not being able to move like that. But he was on it with this one. And again, that speed pairs so well with Oba's strength, He's able to sell for Oba like a champion, and Oba is an excellent base for his size for Lee to do some creative offense with. There's that spot on the outside where he gives him a big old chop that was just really nice.
Jack, he goes for it now, and nothing compares to what he did it to Wesley that night. You say, Jack, that he's a good base. He technically is. I don't remember a lot of Wesley offense in this match. He tries, and I think because he's a former North American champion and he was a champion for a long time, that he kind of comes in with, sort of an aura that maybe I could beat him, right?
Yeah.
He was never going to beat Obafemi. Jack, remember the F-20?
Yeah.
The F5, but you're in the air for 4 times longer than an F5.
Yeah. I do like that. I think they call it the cardiac kick that Wesley does. He's able to land it on Oba in this one. But yeah, like you said, this one is just basically an overall showcase for Oba's strength, And another thing that makes it fun and entertaining for my personal enjoyment is the active crowd, An active crowd always improves. And I think that can be said for almost all my matches here, is that active crowd is the biggest X factor for these matches.
Agreed, Jack. I love what you described as Wesley's coming back from this career-ending injury. They really hyped it up on TV, I remember, because I also remember the thought of Obafemi don't care about your back or your legacy or your story, right? Obafemi beat him so bad he turned him heel. He hit him so hard he woke up and said, "I'm gonna turn on all my friends."
Yeah, he took that chop and was like, maybe being the good guy isn't the way to go about this.
You know what?
If I was the bad guy, I wouldn't be facing him and taking that chop.
And he ends up facing him in the deadline.
Yeah, and what's it called? To play more to Mr. Solis's humor and to play to the bits. Well, my whole CM Punk thing's been a bit. I know yours hasn't been a bit. You can take your Braun Breakers. We'll have Obafemi over here.
Yeah.
That is my number 8, sir.
I'm excited, Jack, to know you watched that match and enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, that match was great, sir. You're number 7.
Number 7, we go to the land of eliteness. We go to Wrestle Dream in October. And my number 7 is a normal, straight-up one-on-one between Jay White and Hangman Adam Page that I didn't know I was going to like as much as I did. But, Jack, they go after each other, and, it's a funny match, which seems like the start of a story, right? I don't know what they have against each other, except Jay White is doing this great, he's just picking on Hangman, you know what I mean? Poking his eye or, teasing him, trying to make him mad. And Hangman's getting mad. And all the meanwhile, Jay is working Hangman's leg. And it's weird because I go, that's weird. 'Cause I'm watching Jack, and I'm I'm not clear on why he's working his leg. It's not like he's got a leg maneuver or a hold, right? And I'm just into it. And I'm watching, and I'm waiting for Hangman to win because Hangman's their boy. And Jackie goes for that. He goes for that buckshot lariat. And Jack, when he hits his leg and he stumbles into the switchblade, I made exactly that noise. Jay gets the 3. What a conniving pseudo face. And they had another match a month later, which I didn't enjoy as much. I think because they're both working. They're a little too even for my take. I did like that Jay won again, but that first match, Jack, it was something special. And that revelation that he couldn't hit his finisher because Jay knew all along it was the best Jay White's look since he moved over to AEW.
I got 2 things to add to that. First off, I think to add to your awe with that spot is the fact that Jay moves himself closer so that he knows Hangman can't hit that buckshot.
Yes!
He moves himself so close to the ropes because Hangman's not going to hit it if he's standing so close. And 2, shout out to Hangman for making it onto your list for another year in a row from a Wrestle Dream match.
Because last year with Hangman versus who?
Swerve.
Where, look at him. Look at us. Listen, I enjoy things.
Yeah. Mr. Solis enjoys 2 things: Hangman, and specifically Hangman at Wrestle Dream.
That's interesting. That's a tall That's a tall order, and for him to fulfill in 2025. I'll be looking out for that now.
Yeah, that's gonna become the same. Like how you have your bit with the number 10 spot. That's also gonna be your bit with your top 10s. Like Hangman at Wrestle Dream. If he's there, it's on the list.
Here, let's go. Better not be a stinker. Don't make a mockery of my list that it has the Costco guy on it.
Oh man,
Who's your number 7?
my number 7 takes us to Stardom. May 5th, I believe, is the date. These Japanese companies. They usually title their events after whatever venue they're in. So I have to give the date because if I just say Korakuen Hall or Yokohama, it's like everyone's gonna be like they have a million events titled that.
Yeah.
So this is between two tag teams. One of them is called Crazy Star, and the other is part of a faction. But when they're a tag team, they go by FWC. Really enjoyed this. It was for Stardom's tag titles. My main issue that it doesn't affect my viewing. It's more like me and getting mad at Stardom's booking is that this entire year was basically just, hey, we're gonna put the tag titles on a team you like, and I'm like, all right, let's see them have a run with it, and then they barely have a run. They like lose the title on their first or second defense and hold it for a total of like 60 days. So I'm just like, man, as I watch that, I'm just like, man, this is the type of title changes Mr. Solis is asking for.
It's true.
But so it's a matchup, like I said, from two teams that I like. And, the benefit of that is even if the team that I like that just barely won the titles, I forget like how long ago they had won the titles and they barely have any defenses. But the benefit is, hey, whoever wins, I'm happy with the outcome because I like both teams,
Yeah.
Very fast-paced match. A lot of good strikes from one half of Crazy Star, Suzu Suzuki. She's a real good striker. I like the matchup, especially because all four women just make for sort of different, matchups of styles. Some nice, fun tag work in it, of course. The submission work by all four women is kind of an underrated aspect, I would say. Especially because the sheer pull they get on some of the submissions, like really, oh man, I forget, like I guess you would say the torque in a way, but like the way they're pulling on some of the limbs at times makes it for a real brutal, submission spot. But yeah, I mentioned it last year. I've been wanting tag wrestling to kind of get back to form, and this is one of those matches that does it for me.
Nice. I'm glad you found a tag match that, that entertained you, because I know it's been a long and dry year for tag team wrestling.
Yeah. But that is my number 7. Sir, we move on to number 6.
Number 6. Guess what, Jack? We're going back to Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling.
I think I have an idea.
My honorable mention being that one with Aja Kong and the Maxi Impaler destroy those poor women who surely must have known what they were getting themselves into. I watched that show for a specific match that stayed on this list since March.
I know what it is.
Minoru Suzuki versus Maki Ito in a good old-fashioned one-on-one intergender match. And it was great. I've never seen a Maki Ito match. I've heard things about her. And, a lot of the matches, good old-fashioned pro wrestling, right? Minoru Suzuki is a funky old man. He's murder grandpa, and he makes Maki Ito cry. I forget how, but I think he starts berating the referee, and he makes the referee cry. And I was like, oh, this is too good. Oh, this is incredible. I don't remember a lot of other things about the match except, murder grandpa's going murder grandpa. You don't care who you are. I actually think he wins. I think he won. Is there any other spots to speak of? He slaps Maki Ito around. I'm sure she gets some licks in on him. I don't think there are any weapons to speak of, but I really enjoyed the crying spots and the fact that Suzuki won with a Gotch-style pile driver.
Yeah, I include that match in my year-end review because it was just too funny. Like you said, it's a fun experience to watch. I mean, making the ref cry was arguably one of the best spots of the match to me. I just can't stop laughing. Like when I rewatched this to like write a bit about it, I was like, my goodness, man, this was hilarious. And it's funny. You see a match like this, and even if you see Suzuki in it. You're thinking, oh, he's probably gonna hold back. This man is full on grabbing chairs and hitting Maki Ito with one. I'm just like, he ain't holding back for no one.
Uh-uh.
Oh man, yeah, that was a fun match. I remember that match. Yeah, definitely another one that like maybe just barely misses my top 10. But yeah, that one was a fun one. Well, sir, you ready to hear my number 6?
Let's hear it.
We're continuing with good old tag wrestling. I was, as you know, on a desperate search for more tag team wrestling, and that search led me to a place called DPW.
Woo!
I can't understate. I can't mention how much of an understatement it is that the three guys that were a staple of the wrestling gaming community on YouTube are out here running their own promotion.
Yeah.
So to be able to see like them do this is crazy. The show I am mentioning the match I'm mentioning comes from DPW High Noon, and it sees Mike Bailey and Jake Something defending their tag titles against a tag team I've talked about before, the ABC from TNA. That is Chris Bay and Ace Austin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, I think I mentioned it to Mr. Solis before, probably off recording. I've heard of Mike Bailey. I remember hearing about Jake Something all the way back in like 2020-ish TNA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That ain't the same Jake Something as the one right here, because my goodness. When I heard they were a tag team, I was like, I wonder how that's going to work. Well, to answer that question, it's top 10 match of the year quality that you get out of them. One of the most fun tag teams to watch this year, and to see them go against the ABC, a tag team who I really enjoy. Clash of styles between the two tag teams. You got Smooth, Arrogant, and Flashy facing off against Bailey and Jake Something, who are just all action. Just like Obafemi, Jake Something shows off some amazing strength. This man, super powerful, and because he's the big guy, that plays into the main focus and the story of the match, and that is the ABC doing their best to keep him out of that match, and that leads to Bailey having to be the main sort of strategist, trying to maneuver his way out of things, out of sticky situations, having to use his strikes and technical work to really, outmaneuver the ABC's tag advantage, since they're keeping Jake out of it so much. Again, the crowd is hot. The action goes down to the wire. This match has me on the edge of my seat. And like AEW, DPW does time limits, so they keep mentioning the clock and the amount of time. I'm just
nice.
Yeah, so I'm on the edge of my seat, especially as the announcer keeps saying the time and it's going down and down. I'm super excited, just like, man, this is some great tag action. And then it ends in a time limit draw.
Whoa!
And I was so angry for it to have ended in a time limit draw, but I think that anger goes to show just how much I was into this match, which can be, that's a lot more that can be said than a couple other matches I watched this year. But,
yeah,
it just shows how invested I was. Like I said, a fun clash of styles between these two tag teams. And I'm glad to have discovered another great tag team in Bailey and Something. I don't know how often they're going to, stay a tag team. Like, I don't know if this was just a one-time thing, if they are a full-time tag team or not, but they had a great year. One of my favorite tag teams to watch this year. Their work in DPW was great.
I want to say they've lost the title since.
Yeah.
I think I don't think that team was long for this world, but was it for the title? Was your number 6 match? And so it's interesting, Jack, how you were so enthralled by the action, by the story they were telling, that I think somebody might have caught on that TNA wasn't going to let one of their top tag teams lose on this indie show, right? And DPW weren't going to put the titles on somebody who wasn't going to be around because they're old school. And you go, how are you going to get yourself out of that? What's more old school than a good old fashioned time limit draw where everyone looks great at the end? Yeah. Dang.
And I have to say, it does work to its benefit, because those final minutes as the clock's ticking down, high octane, full on, urgency at 100, made for a great end of the match.
Right on. Oh, goodness. I got to watch more DPW, and it's on Wrestle Universe if you don't mind waiting. 3 months for a show to go on.
Yeah. But we now enter the latter half of our list, sir. We are in top 5 range.
Woohoo! Here we are, number 5, Jack, and just like your number 6, this one has a lot of urgency because there's a time limit to my number 5, and it's from the land NXT from this month. It's from Deadline, Jack, and it's an Iron Survivor match, the women's, which was far better than the men's, and it featured Ren Sinclair, Stephanie Vacour, Julia, Zarya, and Sol Ruka. No, I'm not gonna lie, Jack. I may have put this match on just so that Stephanie Vacour was on this list at all. But listen, again, like the men's, it happened. There wasn't anybody that was going to win until Lobo Family came out. This one, it could have been any of them. Even Sol Ruka, who showed, I'm using shown as the past tense for shine, right? Ren Sinclair took a bunch of pins, but like she was already hyping herself up before that match to be somebody who had a lot of doubt in herself. You know what I mean? A lot of big confidence issue being in a match with that caliber of person. So like her getting all them pins, it played into the story and her character. And she comes in and I think sneaks like one on somebody, right? But like it just kept going. This match more than the men's, they were going for pins. So many pins, so many attempts, right? And they did a silly WWE thing, which was in the last few seconds, Stephanie's going to try to take the pin, right? And, just beat the belt. I think they do that too many times. But there was, Julia was the clear winner. She won. This match is great. It's always fun. Even like the men's, like it was still entertaining. This one, though, I was excited. Like, are they going to give it to Stephanie? Are they going to give it to Julia? Are they going to give it to, like, Sol Ruka, to my dismay? But that would have been fine anyway. Julia is going to challenge Roxanne Perez at the next match, and it was fun. It was a main event, and worthy of its place on that card.
Yeah, I do have to mention, I did, see a couple things out of that match. My dad was telling me it was really good. I really enjoyed some of the highlights I saw from it. Didn't get to watch it in full. But, speaking to Ren Sinclair, I do have to mention the funny spot where she gets out of the penalty box only to eat, I think it's like a soul snatcher is what Soul calls it.
Yeah.
Immediately and get put right back into the penalty box.
Yeah. And Zarya, F5. There's been a few F5s on this list. And Zarya's, someone I, didn't say enough of. But, it's a good match.
That's good to hear. Well, keeping the theme, my number 5 is also a women's match. And my women's match is the one, along with another match that we'll talk about later with my list, is one where I chant, getting a little tongue twisted over here. I let the chant be heard to the entire wrestling industry. Let the women bleed, let the women be violent, because one of the most underrated feuds this year, mainly due to the programming it took place on, didn't really get, as far from my memory, it didn't get, main Dynamite show time. And here we go. Here's the repeat AEW. This is the lone. Like I said, one of the most underrated feuds this year, culminated in one of the best matches of the year, and that was between Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale, their Chicago street fight at All Out 2024. First off, we know that these two women are great at the hardcore matches because when they were tagging, they were having a plethora of these. The ones I can name off the top of my head are, I think they did one against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. I know they did one, I think, was it Diamante and Mercedes Martinez, I think? I don't know. Anyways, I know that these two women are great at that situation, but the main highlight for me is their feud. Their feud was really great. And I feel that this closing chapter for it was equally great. Classic tag team breakup, but I think they built to it very well. They built to this match very well. And like I said, with this match, what more is there to say except the excellent violence that took place? We've seen it before with many matches. Best friends just usually create the best matches with one another because it's like they have this unspoken agreement that like we're gonna go all in, right? We're not holding back anything, and these women didn't hold back anything in this match. They just went at it with each other. I swear the corner cannonballs that Willow does in this match look way more impactful than any before. Again, like I said, not holding back an inch. One of the spots that stands out to me is when Statlander goes for the swanton on Willow, who's on a table out on the outside. Willow goes to move out the way, but it's unintentional, but it adds to that sort of like violence of the match. Chris catches her in the back of the head with her foot by like accident. So she avoids going through that table, but she still takes quite the blow. The pounce through the barricade was a lot of fun. I really liked that spot. Was not expecting the light tubes to make an appearance, but I love that inclusion. They go all out, no pun intended, in the final minutes of the match.
I was going to call you out on that pun.
And in a promotion that does a lot of hardcore matchups, I think these women stood alone to me. Like I said, one of the best matches of AEW this year. One of the best women's matches in their short history, no doubt, from my mind. And like I said, I just can't state enough how much I enjoyed not only this match between these two women, but their overall work this year. I felt the two of them did really great work this year.
Right on. I didn't see this match live, but I saw the highlights and winced and cringed at every, time it like popped up on my feed. Jack, did somebody hit a splits on Thumbtacks?
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah. I don't know why I evoked that, but hard hitting. We heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Jack wants nothing but violence on women in wrestling.
Oh man. Well, that is our number 5, sir. On to number 4.
Number 4. This is going to be a short entry, Jack. Because what else is there to say about Oba Femi versus Wes Lee and their North American Championship match in NXT Heatwave? When you mentioned it, it was exciting to hear that was one that made your list because here it is on mine, near the top 3. For all the things you said, David versus Goliath, except this time Goliath wins pretty handedly and beat Wesley so bad that he broke up the MSK.
Oh man, yeah, that was a great match.
It really was. I don't think any other match he had lived up to that one. His matches with like Tony D'Angelo. Who else did he fight? He fought. Here's hoping that he on his way through Trick Williams in the NXT Championship. I mean, hopefully he wins and maybe add some dimension, some versatility, and some variety into the very bleak NXT men's main event scene.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of potential from him. I'm excited for his future, And, here's to hoping with that title reign, he gets some variety, gets to add a lot to, like you said, the rest of that division. Has a lot to offer, and I'm glad they're being patient with him, They could have easily done, fast track, if you want to say, but, they're being patient with him, especially because, still a bit green in some areas, but,
it's true.
Equally, or not equally, easily to me, at least, one of the best talents they have in that men's division, which, like you said, needs a lot of work.
I'm just saying.
All right, sir. My number 4. Not the best look for me because we're continuing the women's violence. We are letting the violence continue as things take us over the pond to the UK in the promotion Rev Pro.
Ooh.
So, how did I get here? Well, I think I mentioned it to you, the GYV, the Grizzled Young Vets, had a pretty good trilogy with the ABC and TNA that I enjoyed. And
that was a lot of acronyms.
Yeah. I enjoyed that trilogy. Just misses out on this top 10. Just because I think, some of the tag matches I have on here were just a bit better. But, that trilogy led me to wanting to see more of their work. And I saw they had a match with Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster over in Rev Pro on this show. By the way, it's Rev Pro's Revolution Rumble. So that's what I was tuning into this card to see. But as I was looking at that card, what do I happen to stumble upon is that on this same card is the match of our topic of number 4 today. Danny Luna versus Alex Windsor in a dog collar match.
Oh, wow. That escalated quickly.
Yeah. So, the women have gotten a lot of leeway in recent years, doors opening for them to get the same type of stipulations as the men. And the one I've always wondered how they would tackle is the dog collar match, I wanted to see, there's a couple of names off the top of my head that I was like, I think that could work out, I mean, just look at the previous, match. I think Willow and Statlander are two women you can trust to throw on a pretty good dog collar match if you give them that stipulation. So, it just, seeing a match like this, it makes you think, what a lot more women could do. Not saying that this is a stipulation that needs to be used more often, because I like that the dog collar match is that sort of special stipulation. Like, we very rarely see it, but here, Luna and Windsor prove that they can handle it. Many brutal spots. They set up a chair and they do a power bomb on like the very edge of it that dents the chair and makes for a nice visual. There's a spot. It's kind of hard to explain in words, but basically, I think it's Danny that sets it up, where the chain is extended out and she uses it to clothesline Windsor.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and then there's also a spot where Alex Windsor's trying to create separation between the two, and so what she does, because they're tied together with the chain, she grabs her end and I don't know I guess you would say like whip it so that it vibrates along the chain, and on Danny's end it hits her in the face to create that separation. Like I said, they got very creative with the stipulation. Nice. And how they utilize that chain. They even play around with the title of the match because they use an actual dog cage. And it makes for some fun spots. And I think Danny does powerbomb Alex onto it, and it like dents pretty great. So it was pretty good. By the end of the match, they both have a full-on crimson mask, and caps off a heated top 5 worthy match of the year.
Wow, that sounds pretty wild, Jack. Love to hear. Not only were you venturing off into different promotions, but even different continents.
Yeah, like I said, I was on a desperate search for wrestling to just make me feel something this year.
Danny Luna and Alex Windsor certainly made you feel something.
But we move on to the top 3, sir.
We're on the podiums, Jack. Number 3. Listen, I've heard you talk at great length about a lot of violence across multiple matches. How about I hit you with one match that probably offers the same amount of violence from your last 3 entries in 1 hour spectacular. It comes from New Beginning, New Japan Pro Wrestling New Beginning in February, and it's New Japan's first cage match ever between the United Empire and Bullet Club War Dogs. The United Empire was represented by Francesco Akira, Henare, Jeff Cobb, TJP, and Will Ospreay. And the Bullet Club War Dogs were Alex Coughlin fighting in his last professional wrestling match ever for medical-related reasons. Clark Connors, Dave Finlay, Drill Maloney, and Gabe Kidd. And Jack, I don't know at all what I was expecting when I watched this match in the middle of the night, but it was, I guess it was War Games because they come out one at a time. The cage is so indie, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, just this fence around the ring. They went all over the place. They hit each other with all the things. There was a moment mid-match where TJP goes missing and comes back as that Filipino cryptid.
Oh, yeah.
The thing comes with the red eyes. It was pretty epic. It was pretty epic. At the end, it gets really cheesy, but by now I'm a hook, line, and sinker where War Dogs are standing absolutely tall. United Empire are absolutely decimated, and Will Ospreay stands defiantly. In one of those last matches with New Japan, if not his last match with New Japan, before he goes to AEW. This is February. He's going to show up at AEW in a month. And he stands defiantly against these 5. And just like Oba Femi did to Wes Lee, Bullet Club destroy him. And there's this moment where Will Ospreay is he's like, don't hurt Francesco. Akira, Francesco Akira is like Spider-Man to his Iron Man. He's like, don't hurt the boy. They destroy him. It's fantastic. And I saw it in February, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since.
Yeah, I remember the highlights of this one, especially. I think like Hanare takes a nasty chair shot, if I
Oh,
remember.
man. And
Yeah.
like, it doesn't stop anything.
Oh man, yeah, I remember that match very vividly. Great stuff
I
from
think
him.
there's a part where actually they take him in the back, and he comes back all bandaged up, insisting on continuing the match. Number three.
And my number three will have us remain in New Japan. I
Ooh.
mentioned wrestling making us feel something this year, and this match definitely made me feel something. I mentioned the whole not wanting to include duplicates, so it really came down to what match did I want to pick from this tournament. And that should tell you where we're going. We are in New Japan, like I said, still. We are looking at the G1 Climax, and it is the one man that I haven't been able to shut up about since he was a part of this tournament. It is Konosuke Takeshita's G1 Climax. If I could put his entire tournament in one spot, I would. But what did I end up choosing for, what I thought was his best match out of this G1 run? What makes it here at number three? It is his match against Hiroki Goto, because the G in G1 stands for Goto. This match,
Nice.
one of the best pieces of wrestling this year for me. Like you and I have always said, we always kind of have trouble keeping up with the tournament, really committing to it. But this year, I just knew once they announced Takeshi, I was like, I gotta at least watch his matches. And like I said, amazing G1 run from him. The match itself is really good. The one thing I liked about Takeshi's tournament was that he did a good job playing both heel or face, depending on who he was facing. I like how he was able to switch effortlessly. But the main thing I always mentioned, especially to Mr. Solis, is that he just had some unreal chemistry with so many of New Japan's guys, to the point where I was like, I wish he was in this promotion to help their main event scene right now. Really help a lot of their young guys, because he worked really well with them. But like I said, as difficult as it was to pick, I think his best match came from Goto. Commentary notes something about, like, I think Goto was a wrestler that Takeshi looked up to, so there's like this respect between the two of them. As you would expect from a match with these two names, the strikes, loud, stiff. As the match goes on, you really feel the stakes of the tournament. You're just like, man, it's a true battle for simply 2 points in this tournament. Strike after strike, kick after kick. You got Goto hitting a huge sunset flip powerbomb off the top rope to Takeshita. You got these two guys pulling out all the stops. There's even a spot where Goto headbutts him pretty nasty. The crowd is into both men, but as the match reaches its climax, they are fully chanting Goto's name at the end.
Nice.
They are in awe at each kick out. They are vocal for each big move. Like I said, the biggest X factor for all these matches was probably their crowds. I was super invested in this match. I just really, really loved the pure emotion, the pure passion, a true hard-hitting, hard-fought affair from the two of the best. And just for Mr. Solis, you have Gabe Kidd on commentary for this match, running down Takeshita for being an outsider.
That's incredible. I didn't know about that dimension.
Yeah, great match. My number three.
How funny, Jack. Gabe Kidd running down Takeshita for being an outsider, AEW, when he himself is quite the outsider in this Japanese promotion.
Yeah, but man, he was running down Takeshita any chance he got.
Jack, do you remember what the points were when the match started, or how early into the tournament this was?
I want to say it was the midpoint of the tournament. I believe Takeshita, I almost want to say he was leading his block at the time. And then I think Goto tied him with this victory, I believe. Let me double check. It may have been early on as well. It's been, well, let me see here. I'm pulling up my list.
Does Goto win?
In the middle. Yeah, Goto wins. That's the big surprise.
What?
Goto wins. Yeah, Goto wins this. This is, let's see. So he fought Tsuji, Cobb, Yamura, Hanare, Finley. This is the 6th match in the tournament. So, like, we're right in the middle point, and I believe, like, Takeshita has, like, a pretty good lead, because I know he beat Tsuji, he beat Cobb, he loses to Yamura, he beats Hanare, and I think he loses to Finley. So he's, like, what is that, 3-2 so far. So like he's like at least in contention. Takeshita goes all the way. By the way, like he goes to fight Tsuji in I think like the semifinals.
I watched that one. I watched the semifinals and the finals.
Yeah, but so he had a pretty decent lead, and him and Goto go at it, and yeah, that's the big shock is Goto actually wins this one.
Wow.
Yeah, so
nice.
I think that also plays into it is that it's like, wow, Goto got the big win. Because when I saw the tournament lineup, I was like, okay, which of these matches is Takeshita gonna lose? I was upset at him losing to Finley because I was like, the way they did, I was like, I don't like it, but I'll take it. But then he loses to Goto, I'm like, I'm fine with a loss like that because that one's good.
Nice. On the list for sure.
My number 3. And now we get to number 2.
Number 2, and I think up to this point, I have not had any repeat wrestlers. We made it through 9 matches, Jack. Nobody's been mentioned more than once as far as performer goes. We're going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we're going to Wrestle Kingdom. And I'm talking to you, Jack, about a match that happened in January and has only been beaten by one other match in 2024, in my eyes. And this Wrestle Kingdom match is Kazuchika Okada versus Bryan Danielson in a match that had nothing on the line but respect and honor. And Bryan Danielson told that man he was going to drag him out to the desert where there was no rain. And you were like, yes. And he's coming into that match with the eye patch, which Okada like zooms in on and attacks viciously. Like they're holding nothing back. This is like, is this Bryan Danielson's like maybe first match in the New Japan setting?
I believe
this is
so.
him in and crossing that forbidden door. And, they have another match later in the year, but this one's a billion times better. This is like, one of those real dream matches, right? Yeah. Best in the world, best in a generation versus, best in a generation.
And an improvement on their Forbidden Door match the year before because Danielson doesn't have to deal with a broken hand for like a good...
Oh, you're right. This is a rematch. And they did do this at Forbidden Door, and it was better. And now I'm at a loss at who won, but I think
Okada wins this one.
Okada won the Forbidden Door one, which makes me think that Danielson won this one. No, we got to check.
I think it's reversed. I'll double check it for you right now, but I think it's reversed. I think Danielson won at Forbidden Door.
Oh, you're right, because that was the big shock that he beat Okada on his first attempt.
Yeah, and then I think Okada wins this one here. Let me just double check it for you.
Yeah. Well, but this is definitely a match where...
Okada wins this one.
This is a match, though, that's so well fought, so hard fought. Really, either outcome didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, this one, and so they have a rubber match that'll mean nothing to nobody on AEW Dynamite. But this match, Jack, it ticked all the boxes, it hit all the buttons, and yes, my number 2, Okada versus Danielson.
And I don't want to spoil too much from that year-end video that I'm planning to do on my other channel, but I have to mention it here as well so that the listeners here can go check it out. Okada's entrance for this match is one of the best from the year. He walks out in that all-white attire, and you're like, oh, man, this looks great. And then he stops and lets that light come down to shine through and reveal the patterns in his attire. And I'm just like, this is the greatest match of all time already based on entrance.
This guy is so cheesy. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
But we go on to my number 2, and we are staying in Japan, but going to the promotion Pro Wrestling Noah.
Ooh.
So like I'll always say whenever I end up talking about something with Noah, I don't know anything about Noah. But my number 2, my number 2 comes from one of their shows. I think it's called Sunny Voyage. It is a tag match, and it is for the junior heavyweight titles. The champions are Hayata and Yohei defending against, I'm going to butcher these names. I'm going to tell you right away. Atsushi Kotoge and Hajime Ohara. So it's for their junior heavyweight titles. I know about Yohei because of his match with El Desperado. I think it was last year or the year before. One or the no, I think it was
Oh, I do
2022.
know that name, and I know that match.
Yeah, so I know him from there, but he's tag teaming with Hayata. They're a part of a faction called Ratel, I believe. I think it like they were a previous faction, broke up, got back together this year. I think is what it is. But so
Yeah.
that's the tag team that another tag team along with Mike Bailey and Jake something that I've had a lot of joy watching this year. I like their presentation, their theme music, their attire, and their run with Noah's junior heavyweight tag titles have been a great watch for me. And I think this one is the best in their reign so far. Again, crowd influences. The moment I finished this match, I knew it was going on my list, and I made sure to put in parentheses as a note. It is a very hot crowd. They are very loud and vocal for this. Um, the setting itself, I think, is another underrated part that adds to the match because it's a much smaller venue. So there's like limited space
Mm.
ringside. So it kind of, there's some outside spots, but for the most part, it's all about keeping things in the ring. Sorry. And, I don't know if it's just me personally, but that kind of makes some of the flashy moves stand out a bit more. The fact that they're not using the outside more, they're doing a lot of the big moves in the ring, in a very limited space. Um, all four, just work so well, fast, fluid. Um, Other than really the beginning where they kind of do like a feeling out sort of phase, they are just working really well. I don't really know if there's a single spot where any of the four men don't work well with one another. That's how, fluid they were and how well they
Yeah.
were working with one another. Um, Kotuge and O'Hara, they really do a great job of building sympathy for the champions, And this is going to seem like such an odd thing to make note of, but again, it really impacts the match. So, uh, despite I don't want to make it seem like they're old, but like they're a bit older of a talent. But Yohei and Hayata definitely have a lot of fan support, and the tiny aspect I want to add that I think just makes this match better is that I don't know if the crowd is majority or it's just a vocal minority in the crowd, but the female participants of this crowd really help because I mentioned them building sympathy for the champions. A lot of those women in attendance shriek in support of the tag champs and shriek in horror whenever they're getting beat down. So it
Oh,
really
great.
it really adds to the match. And the final minutes of this match are really great. I really enjoy it. A lot of close falls. Just amazing tag work and overall a fun watch.
Cool. Right on. Hey, Jack, I want to maybe ask after we reveal our number ones, what percentage of your list is tag team wrestling?
Oh, that is interesting. I also
We'll
wonder
do.
what percentage contains Japanese talent.
Oh, goodness, there's a lot of incredible people all across the world. I did the breakdowns, Jack. Three of mine are from NXT, two of mine are from New Japan. None of them, Jack. None of my top 10 list matches of 2024 are from like the WWE main roster.
Yeah, I
I,
noticed that too.
I tried. I looked, and nothing was gonna top AJ the Costco guy versus QT Marshall at a casket match and street fight, and WWE is being represented by NXT throughout my list.
Yeah, I definitely felt the same way. And I just counted it right now. 15 out of I don't know how many participants like on my list, but 15 talents are of Japanese race, I guess you would say. Yeah,
Right on.
15 of them. Well, technically Asian is the race, but yeah, 15 of them are Japanese. I counted it. Maybe I counted wrong, I don't know, but 15. Japan did a lot of great things this year.
They sure did.
But
Even if their main event scenes are, sporadically stale.
and then
Their undercard. There's a lot to talk about.
I have 3 tag matches. So what is that? 30%?
Okay, I thought it was more, but really exciting to hear about
Hey, that's
tag
an
teams.
that's an improvement over 1 last year,
Yeah, goodness.
and that's 2 in the. Oh no, well, that's 1 in the top 5, and then the others. I think last year it was like my number 9 was the tag match, but yeah, improvement over just 1 last year.
Got you.
But sadly, sir, for the listening audience, we have reached our number one spot, which means after this, the listening audience will have to wait a whole nother year to hear us talk about our top tens once again.
Brad Paisley sang it. Good things and bad, neither one lasts.
Yeah, but
That's off the Cars soundtrack.
But here we go, sir. Number one for you and I.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there was some funkiness with Zoom. Not now, Zoom. Not now. My number one has two wrestlers that have already appeared on my list fighting each other. I couldn't put anything above. From AEW Dynasty, Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson in another truly generational talent versus generational talent dream match. Over nothing, I don't think. Was this for the international title? I don't think they were fighting for anything.
No, he hadn't won it yet.
I think they were just, hey, bruv, who's better, right?
Yeah.
And this had all the spots. This had all the spots of Kyle Fletcher, but this is more warranted because it's Bryan Danielson. This had all the energy of, Will's matches with so-and-so, but this was main event. This was answering the question, who's better, right? And, it's here, Jack, because of that last moment. So Will Ospreay goes on this story that Kevin Owens later in the year tells better of, I have a move that's too devastating to use, right? The AEW may have fumbled the bag with that story, but it starts here with his Tiger Driver.
Yeah.
And uses it on Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson's going to die. And why this match, Jack, is not only on my list but so high is because Will Ospreay is celebrating too much to realize how much peril Bryan Danielson is, and he hits the hidden blade on him hard. In the subsequent matches that he has, he holds back, he shows remorse and doubt. But this one, he don't hold nothing back. He goes crack, right? Yeah. And beats him. It goes on to have, a solid year himself. But this match, Jack, from beginning to end, it answered our questions. It sets up more, and goodness gracious, just like the ones you described about people who trust each other or know their craft well enough that they're like, hey, we're not going to hold anything back out there. We're going to go for broke. We're going to make it look like it hurt, because we're going to make it hurt. And this was a really good match. This was one I'll watch again and again, and this is my number one match for 2024. Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at Dynasty.
Nice. I've never forget watching Dynamite throughout all this, like you were mentioning the story that followed, and I think the biggest fumble, which you want to say is out of control of the hands that be, but also it's like, if you knew you had big plans for Bryan Danielson, maybe don't do this story here. But it was like, you're going into All In when he's facing MJF and he doesn't want to hit the Tiger Driver. And it's like, dude, the guy you hit it on is in the main event fighting for the world title. Why are you so afraid of hitting it?
And smash cut to 6 months later where Kevin Owens is literally holding back all the rage and emotions that involved in him hitting that power bomb on Cody Rhodes on the outside. He only just hit the package pile driver on Saturday for the first time in 10 years. That's how you tell a story about a move, Jack. Randy Orton hasn't been seen since he got hit with the pile driver, right? That's how you do it. Will Ospreay, meanwhile, is going to be like, I don't know if I'll ever use it again. I'm going to retire that move. Then he straight up uses it in every match thereafter. And I wish, Jack, here's a quick fix. I wish he had a side eye or a smile in the corner of his mouth, like he was getting away with something. No, but for real, I'm not going to use it. And then he uses it again. But, I think the intention was always he was going to be super big baby faced, bruv.
Yeah, and, I think a lot of people are probably surprised to not see Danielson on my top 10. It's not that I didn't enjoy his matches, but I think it's something I said to Mr. Release a lot of times. I just felt like I had to, I need to rewatch a lot of the matches that happened this year, because I don't think it was that I didn't enjoy them. It's just maybe I wasn't giving them my full attention,
And, there were certainly a lot of them after he won the title that were really hot-shotted. TV matches, Jack. Ooh, you love to hate them.
Yeah,
Even though I know your number one is going to be Julia's best match of her career, Julia versus Ren Sinclair. No, versus Chelsea Green. Yes, NXT TV.
Yeah, and before we end, I just want to make one more quick note, real quick, people, and I'm not stalling for my number one. You go back to the whole thing about the moments. Brian Danielson probably could have had a ton of top 10 moments on my list because, I mean, nothing to me topped the ending, or not the ending, but the post match segment of his all out title defense where the BCC come out and then they murder him with the plastic bag. All Out was so crazy this year. I told my dad, I'm like, that was like watching televised murder just over and over and over again.
Oh, this is the same night where
Daniel, Daniel Garcia power drives MJF and they have to stretcher him out or something. Willow and Chris are going crazy. Swerve and Hangman in the main event. It's like, this is just televised murder at this point. Like, I'll never forget finishing that pay-per-view, walking out, because this was back, you remember my old setup, so the curtain, I just put a curtain, my dad's like, so how was the show? I was like, I feel like I just watched Murder like 4 different times.
You're like, I'm not okay.
I was like, I don't know what's been going on with AEW, but everyone's been getting away with crimes lately. You have Hangman, the arsonist. They just killed Bryan Danielson after his world title match. And my dad was like, what do you mean? And that's when I showed him. I was like, they put a plastic bag over his face. Great stuff. But enough stalling. We're getting to my number one pick. Sorry, y'all. The good times have to come to an end. And similar to what Mr. Solis was saying, my number one is a dream match of many fans, but it was my personal dream match. And it's what's kept it at its number one spot since July, I think. June, August. I don't remember when it took place. That's the funny part. But with this match, I have to give a shout out and a thanks, because if it weren't for this promotion, I wouldn't have the majority of my list. I wouldn't have watched TJPW, even though I've watched I've watched the promotion before, but mainly I wouldn't have watched it as much this year, Noah at all, or DPW, without our final match that took place in the promotion, Marigold. I have Marigold to thank because it is due to them that I signed up again for Wrestle Universe. And under the Wrestle Universe branch is where all those other promotions happen. And that's what gave me my number 2 match on the year, my number 6, my number 9, so I got to give a shout out to them. But why did I sign up for Wrestle Dream? Why was I tuning into Marigold? It is because my current favorite women's wrestler, Utami Hayashishita, made the shift, or made the move over from Stardom to Marigold. And I'm such a big fan of her. I was like, I have to sign up to Wrestle Universe. I have to be able to have access to my favorite wrestler in the world right now, and it led me to watching wrestling in a bunch of places. But enough about that. What is my number one with Marigold? It is Marigold Summer Destiny. It was my dream match for the longest time. I never thought it would happen. It is Io Sky versus Utami Hayashishita over in the land of Marigold. Never thought it would happen. One, because I don't think, at least as of right now, Utami wants to make the move over to America. But 2, with Io being locked in with WWE for probably long term, I just never saw a time where she was going to return to Japan. And given how WWE has been in the past, I was like, they're never going to let her do a match outside of the WWE. Well, newsflash, they did let her do a match, and that led to my dream match happening. 2 of my favorite women's wrestlers, and they are a big-time headliner for the show. They're not the main event, they're the penultimate match. So much story about this match that I could just ramble on about, but there's just so much to it. Their entrances are amazing. It is even though it's not taking place in Stardom where it would have more impact, it is the Queen's Quest founder, Io Sky, who founded that faction, facing off against the former leader who took over in 2020, I want to say, basically 2 years after Io had left, Utami. So it's founder versus a former leader of that faction. They have been wanting this match for so long, but Io left for WWE. It is Utami's strength versus Io's fast-paced offense. Io is just super happy to be back in Japan, especially because she's like, hey, I can finally fully lay into someone with my kicks. Because the kicks she lays in the corner, I'm just like, yeah. They were complaining about some of the kicks Io was giving. I forget to who during, I think it was like Money in the Bank. I was like, they would be having a heart attack if they saw the way she was kicking Utami. Utami's face literally started turning red from some of the kicks.
Dang.
They got a lot of great spots on the outside. There's amazing counters in this one. I love the story element of the fact that like Utami's almost sort of happy that the match took this long to happen because she's now experienced compared to when she was a rookie. Because she went to Stardom in 2018, never got to face off against Io, but it was like it would have been rookie versus veteran, whereas now she has a bit more experience, but it's still having to battle against an even more experienced Io Sky, and you see that play out a lot in certain spots. The biggest spot of the match is a springboard poison Rana off the top rope that almost ends badly because they don't almost fully rotate, but they get it off. It's a big time spot. Again, not only is Io happy, but the crowd is happy to see her back. They are loud for each of the moves. They pull everything out of their arsenal, and you can just hear it in my voice. It is a match that I just had so much fun watching and, was so happy to watch. I stayed up to watch it because, Japan shows stay up in the night. I made sure to stay up and watch it. Like I said, two of my favorites, a match that I've wanted for years. Like watching Shibata live, I just didn't think it was something I was going to get to watch. Much less, it happening over in Japan. I always thought if this match happens, it's going to happen to WWE. It's going to happen on a random episode of Raw with like 5 commercial breaks in it. And, not any expectations I wanted. But nope, got to watch it over here in Marigold. Absolute joy. No surprise. I did a whole video on it on my other channel. That's like the 3rd year in a row that my number one match is one that I've done a video on. And probably super predictable to a lot of people, but like I said, this has been my number one match since it happened because, again, it was a dream match that I wanted for so long. And like I said, this whole list was about personal enjoyment.
Oh, subjectivity with a capital S. Wonderful, Jack. Did Io win?
She did win. And I wasn't upset about it.
WWE's like, hey, listen, go have a great time, but if you lose, don't bother coming back at all.
Yeah, I knew there was no way Utami was winning, but I was like, I don't care. It's kind of like the tag match at my number 7 where I was like, I like both, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, I didn't care who won this one. I was like, I'm just happy that this match is actually happening, and it gets a definitive finish, unlike Kairi versus Utami in Stardom that got a time limit draw.
Dang.
This one gets a definitive finish, and I was super happy.
Right on. Congratulations, Jack.
And that caps off our top 10. That is my number 1 of 2024, and that is our top 10 matches of 2024 in the wrestling world.
Woohoo! What a year.
Yeah. And just like every year, there's a lot to look forward in the next upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be able to have a top 10 list on like the first week with Roman versus Solo and Seth versus Punk at Raw on Netflix.
Yeah, I look forward to being predictable because over in Marigold, Suri and Utami are having a match, I think, like in that first week. Like I think it's like on the 3rd of January.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm ready to be predictable and be like, hey, my number 1 match was one that took place in the first week of January.
And Zack Sabre Jr. defends the IWGP, or I think it's called IWGP, right? He's going to defend the heavyweight title against Shota Umino in a match where surely this is the match where we'll all turn a quarter on Shota Umino.
Oh, man.
I have not turned a quarter on Shota Umino.
All I could think back to is me watching Takeshita's G1. I'm just like, come save this main event scene.
Save us, Konosuke. You're our only hope. Save us, Y2 Konosuke.
No, you know what the New Japan main event scene needs? It needs the learning tree.
How dare you, sir? I was just about to say Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd. Early contender for this list for next year.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff to look forward to
You know
in
what,
the
Jack?
upcoming
We
year.
should have recorded this next week so that both you and I could watch Final Battle because Chris Jericho versus Matt Cardona is going to surely crack our top 10.
I saw the World's End card and I was like, man, maybe a couple of these matches could have made my list and made it a bit more difficult of a choice. But I was like, we're not waiting till no final week of December.
As it is, like AEW shows, like the matches look good on paper, but I don't know what it is that makes it just go mrr.
Uh, but that wraps up our top 10 list. Any final words, sir?
It's been a pleasure, sir. It's been a joy. I'm gonna definitely watch Kenosuke versus Goto for your recommendation, and I'm gonna try to catch that Marigold match. I haven't been able to see since the summer.
Yeah, great matches all around in both our lists and all around the wrestling world. But with that being said, I've been Jack, joined by my guest.
Mr. Solis.
Thank you for joining us for another year round the sun, another year of our top 10 matches. We look forward to seeing you next year. Look forward to seeing you anytime we cover any shows. And as always, thank you all for joining for this one, and we'll catch y'all in the next one.